I started my career in an old mill building with very little lighting and, no air conditioning, and the heat didn't really even work. But that place was overflowing. And it was overflowing because they would come for the staff. They came for that counselor in summer, or the gym person, or the staff that worked with them in the after school. And I see the same thing in our club now. The best reward we can get, or the best thing I hear, is when I see parents come in and the child says, "I don't want to go yet. Why are you here picking me up now? Can you come back?"
Introducing Checkwriters, a video podcast for people who want to help their employees, colleagues, and organizations flourish and succeed. I'm your host, Dakota Hebert, Chief Marketing Officer at Checkwriters. Along with my co-host, HR Manager Felicia Corbeil, we'll hear from business leaders and pros who share captivating stories from their respective industries. Join us as we uncover their strategies and get unique inspiration for building great processes and experiences at your own organization. Check out and subscribe to Checkwriters on Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen and watch your favorite shows. Thanks for watching. Imagine accepting a new job, only to be told that the company would close in a few months if you couldn't fix it. That's exactly where Dan D'Angelo found himself when he first took over as executive director of the local Boys and Girls Club. Listen to this episode of Checkwriters to hear how Dan brought a beloved community club back from the brink by engaging the board and his staff, revamping the club's programming, committing to an open-door policy, and mentoring the next generation of leadership. So welcome to another episode of Checkwriters. We are a software and services company on a mission to provide the best payroll and HR experience for our clients. And today we're looking forward to talking with Dan D'Angelo. He's not the founder of D'Angelo's for those of us in New England.
Not even. Yeah.
But he is a nonprofit and community leader who's been at the helm of several nonprofit organizations, currently serves as executive director of the West Springfield Boys and Girls Club, a group that he's grown tremendously over the past 10 plus years through sound financial management, building a team-first culture, and he's going to share with us today how you can take those lessons into your own organization. So Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about just the Boys and Girls Club in general, because everyone's heard of the Boys and Girls Club. There's thousands of locations nationwide, right?
4,000.
Okay, wow, yeah. So I'm guessing most people, myself included, would just like to hear exactly what is a Boys and Girls Club. Who do you serve? How do you do it?
It's, a nonprofit. It used to be recreational based. Boys and Girls Clubs started in Hartford. That was the very first Boys and Girls Club in the country in 1880 something. I'd have to look that up. But at that time, it was to get the boys off of the streets that were causing all the problems, And it was 5 mothers that opened up their house and got the boys in to do different crafts and, give them a positive place to be and interact. And it kind of just morphed on into that. The time when I started was very recreational. So a lot of athletics, basketball and soccer and floor hockey. And again, that kept the kids off of the streets. But when I started, it was Boys and Girls Clubs already. There was a time that it was just boys clubs and girls clubs. And then they merged in 71, I think. And, the last 15 plus years, it's really kind of, morphed into, more of an educational piece as well, kind of supplement some of the things that the schools stopped doing. I played my basketball at my middle school. They don't do that anymore. It's all, town-run organizations. The art classes, some of the after-school music classes that they used to have at schools when I was going. Schools had to kind of, manage their budgets and, take their priorities. So clubs started to pick up a lot of that and started to engage in kids' and intellect, and also, those kids that aren't gym rats. I was a gym rat. You could have put a rock in a gym with me and my friends, and we would have figured out a game.
Yeah.
Not every kid is like that. They gravitate towards the arts, or they gravitate towards, music. Now there's gaming options. We have 3D printers in our club. If you asked me 5 years ago what a 3D printer was, I wouldn't know what it was.
Right.
Esports. If you asked me to, put a consoles in our club. 5 years ago, I would have said, there's no way. That's not what they're here for. They can do that at home. I don't want this to be their strongest muscle.
Right.
Now it's a different time, and it also it gets the kids into the club. So it has morphed into more than just a recreation. It is really kind of encompasses every experience or opportunity that we can think of, or that the kids tell us that they want, can evolve at the club. And that's kind of the benefit or the nicety that we have. We can develop programs around what our kids want or want to see. We don't have any walls in that category. Right now they're hatching eggs in preschool because the kids wanted to, hatch eggs.
Yeah, my son's doing that right now too.
Yeah. Nobody asked me about it. I just found out. So I'm still wondering where these chickens are going to go when they hatch. But
hey, that could be another good component. You could have a farm component.
we're not going to.
You can take them home, yeah.
Well, wow, I didn't realize that they're first of all, I didn't realize that Boys and Girls Club was founded right in Hartford.
Yep.
30 minutes from us. But to have such explosive growth over the country for the past 100+ years. Now there's, as you said, 4,000 plus locations.
Yeah.
So what is your interaction like with the clubs around the country? Is there a lot of sort of coordination, at least locally?
I think that's where Boys and Girls Clubs of America comes in. They're used to be in New York City. Now their hub is in Atlanta. I just got back from the national conference in Atlanta, actually. There was like 3,200 delegates there, from different, whether it's CEOs or executives, a director of operations. So, marketing, HR. It's different. Western Mass is different. So there's 7 clubs in Western Mass. On a general basis, we work really well together. And we've collaborated on things. We've collaborated on grants before, program ideas. We get together as executives probably 3 or 4 times a year to just generally talk about, what's working, what's not working, what do you see that's coming down the line? So it could be different, and we're lucky that it's not, that we still collaborate. Nationally, you're always, it's a nonprofit, so you're always stealing ideas, and everybody understands that. I look around at other clubs, and even the bigger clubs, the metro clubs like Boston and Atlanta. They have Boston, I think, has 52 sites that they manage, throughout the city.
Wow, that's
I couldn't even
crazy,
imagine
That's a
doing
lot.
that. Yeah. So you're always looking at their websites and, talking to executives. And Metro South, they have a big club. We have a good relationship with them. And again, we're all serving kids. So sometimes the dollar amount can get competitive, or you can think it can.
You mean maybe in terms of like fundraising initiatives?
Yeah, fundraising or, again, foundations, grant writing. But we're all serving kids. And that's the benefit we all see.
That's true. That's a lot different than, some industries, business industries. They're going after the same customers or prospective customers. But you're all in the same mission of serving the kids in the community. So probably isn't terribly competitive. But yeah, to your point too about stealing ideas, I think everybody does that in business.
Yeah.
You
In
have
anything.
to.
Don't they say there's only like 7 ways to write a play? Isn't that what it is? So everybody like steals ideas.
Yeah.
Well, and
Because there's only they've all been used already.
I would imagine. Yeah.
imitation is the best form of flattery,
That's
right?
another
Isn't
one,
that
right?
the-
Yeah. Let's come up with some more of those phrases.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of having it all benefit the kids, so do you find that the kids in this area maybe benefit a little bit more from having the clubs be so close together, especially in terms of programs? If they can't access a program in the West Springfield location, they can access one at the Chicopee location. Do you see that crossover happen?
Yeah, we do. In West Springfield, we do. I couldn't speak to every club in the region. And it's usually around summertime or like the vacation times, So during the school year, our programs that operate are before school programs, after school programs. For elementary, they're 99% West Springfield kids because that's how they can get there.
That's how they get to and from school.
Yeah, but our preschool, which operates 50 weeks out of the year, I think right now we're only 50% of West Springfield. So those families that have an opportunity, whether they live in West Springfield or we're within their driving location to get to work, whatever that dynamic is, only 50% of our preschoolers during the year are West Side, and the others come from Agawam, they come from Springfield, West Side, Holyoke, whatever is in their path. And we see the same thing in summer. Now, summer's not 50%. Our summer camp is probably 80% West Springfield, but then there's another 20 that are split up between the surrounding communities. And it's, again, it's all within that family dynamic, whether we're on the way to work or they work in West Springfield, whatever the location is, or the reason they get to our location, we see a change. And I'm sure that's probably in other cities as well, or towns.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, your role is the executive director, and you were president of a previous Boys and Girls Club, right? In Ludlow?
Yeah, so I started in Ludlow.
Okay.
That's where I grew up.
Okay. Yeah. And to what extent is your role like recruiting staff? I know you do a lot with like maintaining the culture of the club. We talked a little bit about how you seek to build a team first culture. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about how you seek to do that, and how it's different and or similar between nonprofits and businesses.
Right now, I've got a great team, and I say that sincerely, even if they don't watch this. But as far as the recruiting, I recruit certain positions. My director of operations, my resource development director, office manager, our membership or service coordinator. Those are really key people. Our member service coordinator, she's the first person that anybody's ever going to see, whether they call or they come into the club. So that's a very important position.
And who is that?
Right now it's Laura Mitchell.
Okay.
She does a tremendous job for us. And she needs to know everything that's going on. Like I didn't know about the chickens.
But she knew about the chickens.
But she knew about them. But she also, our service team needs to know when basketball is, how much summer camp is, when's the after school registration starting. All the dynamics of the club go through them first. If it gets to me, then there's a problem. So, but going back to the recruiting, so those are the positions. And my director of operations right now, he oversees the rest of the hiring. So our site coordinators, our part-time staff, our enrichment program coordinators, he does the majority of that.
What sort of things do you do to build a team first culture over at the club?
One thing is my door's always open, and my phone's always on. That I'd never want them to feel the brunt of the whole organization on their shoulder. I want them to be able to have the knowledge that they can go out and perform the job well, and that there's backing. There's always somebody that's going to be there if something goes wrong. And again, it's such a delicate industry because we are dealing with kids, right? And the number one thing is, we talk about this all the time, and I tell the staff this all the time, the number one thing at the end of the day is that child needs to go home in the same condition that he was dropped off.
Yeah. And
there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And anything can go wrong in the instant. So to be heads up on it. And it's hard to do that and then have them have the freedom to have fun, create engaging games. I started as a program person, so I do have a different perspective. And I've had programs that it was me and 2 kids for 4 weeks, and then it was me and 50 kids.
Yep.
So to let them know that, again, you can try anything. We're a team here. Let's discuss it. And our team meetings are set up that way too. It's everybody, all the team managers are in the room. So whether you know how to run the phone service and be a member service director. Doesn't really matter because Laura has a lot of great ideas. And just because you're in preschool, stuck with 20 little people, doesn't mean you don't have ideas that can help the rest of the club. So, having that I guess, understanding that we're all in this together and that you don't have to take the weight of the club on. My job is to make sure you have the resources to do your job well. And, to make sure that it's engaging for the kids to come on a daily basis, because they will drop out if you're not engaging with them.
from that same perspective with the kids is making sure that not only are they leaving in the same condition, but that hopefully they're going home and saying that they enjoy it, and then their parents are happy with it too. Because I know, having worked in education, that's also a part of your clientele are
Yeah.
those parents and those people, and making sure that they're satisfied with the condition that their child is coming home to them
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
So I can imagine you've had some challenges with that. Do you, when those types of things happen, do you step in directly and work with your team on it, or are those the situations where you're like, I've given you the tools, you've got it?
I would have to say, luckily, there's not too many situations I didn't feel like our staff handled it well. There's, we're licensed childcare as well, so there's a lot of regulations that go about being licensed. I wouldn't change it for the world, because those regulations are there for a reason. But there's a lot of paper wasted in incident reports and injuries, paper cuts, and even the parents get like, did you really have to tell me?
That's how I feel about my daycare too. Yeah.
Did you really? And unfortunately, yes, we do. Just want to make you aware of it. But very serious incidents. Again, they know that I'm there. There have been times that I've had to sit in. There's been incidents where we had to have a team discussion with a family that I've been a part of, but we've always discussed it prior to. It's always been, okay, how we, what occurred, what could we make better, and then, how can we help this family? And we try to look at it that way as much as possible. Being in education, it's different. My wife's a first grade teacher, so you have that child till the end of the year. In our situation, we want to make sure that it's a positive interaction for all of us, and as long as it stays positive, we can work with almost anybody. But on the same end, we have 180 other children that we have to make sure are having a positive interaction as well. So again, I haven't had a few in West Springfield where I've had to not step in, but be part of that conversation.
So you had a lot of success, Dan, at your prior Boys and Girls Club. When you came into the West Springfield Club, 10 plus years ago, what sort of things did you look to put in place to grow the club? Did you have to look at finance? Did you have to look at operations, staffing?
All of that. So when I started almost 12 years ago now, we the club had lost their leadership. The longtime executive had passed away. There was really a gap there. So they were running about a $300,000 budget, but in the previous 3 years, they had also lost six figures. So the programming was down, the staff morale was down, the staffing level was down. It was a difficult situation to look at, to go back and say, wow, why did I do that? I'm glad I did, but it would have been a club that would have closed, and that would have been a detriment to Western Mass, to West Springfield in particular. So I started with the staff. That was the most important thing, and the programming. So we needed to get the staff on board to say, this is how we program. Whatever you knew in the past, whatever you thought an after-school program looked like, put it away and just follow this method with me, please. Because it's going to be beneficial to the kids, and you're going to see the turnaround. And then we started to look at expansion. The financial piece was, luckily I had a really good board of directors that understood the need of the club. Some of them had been members of the club. I don't know if they were at any of the dances. I'd have to check. Maybe I won't check.
Ask.
Yeah, really.
Do a survey.
Yeah.
Want to be careful once you go down that rabbit hole. Huh?
Yeah. Some long-term board members came back to the club, and so they started to see, okay, this is what the club could be. And I had a model in Ludlow that I didn't necessarily build. It was built as a team. It was built with a lot of energy and a really good staff and really good board members. So I did kind of have the template. I just needed the opportunity and the timing to make it work. And one of my first finance committee's meetings, once we put a finance committee together, was I'll never forget it. Paul Fortini, who's is an honorary board member now, was with the board for like 25 years.
Wow.
Looked at the finances and said, "You've got about 2.5 years to turn this around. We'll have to close the doors." So I'm not going to go home and tell my wife that, but I totally understand.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really interesting approach that you said you started with the staff and the programs as opposed to looking at the finances first. I mean, I'm sure they probably did happen simultaneously in some aspects, but starting with the program, starting with the kids, because that's really what's at the center of the organization. And those are your clients. And those, like you said, are the ones that you're working for and making sure that the programs are applicable for.
Yes, exactly. And I had seen the finances, so I did have an idea. It was just spelled out to me a little clearer in that meeting. But I did have an idea, and then, I did have some thoughts before I took the job of what West Springfield could be, because it's not a very big town. You look at Riverdale Street, and everybody thinks that's the whole town. I think I think right now there's like 26,000, but in area it's big. So where we are in the Merrick section, it could take you 20 minutes to get to John Ashley School, and it's in the same town. It's just the way the town is kind of separated. So I knew part of the what I wanted to build is to make sure our programs got to those kids that were on the outskirts that couldn't get down to the Boys and Girls Club. So that I did have some ideas. It just was making it try to work.
How do you go about kind of marketing the programs to kids and families?
Right now, again, we have a really good team. Our resource development director, who's fundraising, developing new resources, is very technical savvy. So, we did build a new website. We have social media, Facebook and we don't have a TikTok yet, but the other social media platforms we use a lot. We have text messaging. So all of our parents that have registered for anything, we can get information out to them. That seems to be one of the best avenues we have right now, because everybody kind of looks at their phones, constant contact. So they do a really good job of also mixing that too. So, there's the financial piece. So you have a fundraiser coming up on June 24th, our annual golf outing. But, we also have summer camp, which is, important to our parents to make sure they know when summer camp registration starts. So they do a great job coordinating with program on, okay, when are we going to market our fundraising activities? When do we have new programs going out, and how do we get them out? A lot used to be paper. We used to make photocopies of 1,400.
Bring it to the schools.
And bring it to the schools, and put them all in packets of 25, and that luckily, thank goodness, is over.
Yeah, I feel like when I was a teacher and I would give those out to kids, I would look in their bags months later and it'd be like, why do you have this form still?
Yeah. The chances of that getting home
exactly
with everything else was nil.
Very small.
Yeah.
So back to the budgeting a little bit. What sort of unique budgeting considerations and finance considerations do nonprofits have, and how is it similar to running a business?
Besides the fundraising aspect, a for-profit organization usually isn't doing a fundraiser to whether it's for scholarship opportunities or just for their operating budget, but. I don't see a lot of differences, and I've only talked to a few for-profits just to kind of get some ideas on how they budget their stuff. But we have the same, we have personnel, we have benefits, we have supplies, and we have capital that we need to put aside to make sure if we have any renovations or anything that goes wrong. But I don't see a lot of difference. It's just I think in the past, it used to be like if you were a nonprofit, even if you were a Boys and Girls Club, and I don't know if this was something I inherited or learned or saw, but it used to be like a zero budget. You budgeted zero, and that's, because you're a nonprofit.
Right.
Well, nonprofit isn't necessarily you don't make a profit.
Right.
Nonprofit is basically, you're just putting that profit back into the organization. And so we didn't have that luxury the first 5 or 6 years, but that's a different aspect that even like some of the younger people I see coming up through nonprofits, I try to emphasize, like, you don't have to not make a profit. You should build in a profit, because we've all seen the rainiest day, hopefully that we've ever will see again,
Right.
in COVID. And if you don't have those extra funds, then you'd have to close your doors. But besides that, besides the fundraising aspect of it and the grant writing, although for-profits can write grants,
Right.
for their businesses, I don't see a huge difference. I think we all have kind of the same expenses. The income is just a little different.
That's a good point. When you mentioned younger folks coming up through the ranks of nonprofits, and I think, probably a lot of them have this idea that, as you mentioned, like, oh, I'm going into nonprofit. It's not really about making money. It's about serving the community and the mission, which of course it is. But it's good also to have that financial, at least, awareness. Because as you say, you need to have it with what you're looking to do. So talk a little bit about when you have younger employees coming up, and what sort of like training or mentoring you do as someone who's been in this world for some time.
Yeah. The onboarding for our staff now is very technical. It's handled by, I shouldn't say technical. It's cumbersome, as HR might know. So there's the license side of it that they have to have, certain trainings, background checks, and mandated reporting and that kind of training. And then there's the Boys and Girls Club side. So we want them to know, like, the first Boys and Girls Club was started in Hartford, and kind of give them a history. And then there's some trainings that Boys and Girls Clubs of America requires them to go through. On my end, and I don't deal a lot with that, but on my end, it's really become a focus in the last few years for me to get new leadership, because I do see a lot of nonprofits struggling with that. I look at our own region, Western Mass. There's only a couple that are younger than I am, and they're not much younger. So in the next, 5 or 10 years, you could see a whole changeover in seven clubs. I don't see where those 7 executives are coming from, and that concerns me. So I really try to work on with our upper management. Okay, what are your next steps, and then who's going to fill your steps if you take a job in Wyoming? There's
Right.
clubs all over the country. There's nonprofits all over the country, and really trying to make sure that we always have a succession plan for almost every position we have. It doesn't always work. It's not always there, but I do want our employees to know that is, if that's your goal, then let me know how I can help you. Let's get you out to train. I took 2 of my leadership staff to Atlanta to our national conference this year, to expose them to, outside of the bubble of West Springfield or even Western Mass, like what other opportunities are out there, what kind of trainings are involved, and what connection you can make.
So does Boys and Girls Club of America have sort of like different tracks in leadership development, like classes and courses and things that?
Not as well as they should, I think. When I was younger, there was an executive tracks, and it was a 2-week training. And we all went to Florida. I think there's about 30 of us, and it was extensive. Like, we had the middle weekend off, like that Saturday. That was it, and every day focused on something else: board development, finance, grant writing, staff development. It was very intensive. You got bits and pieces of it, but it was really good for me to kind of see some of the outer stuff from programming. There is a smaller group, an MRG group, and I don't even know what it means right now. But I know my director of operations is very heavily involved in it, and I want him to be, because it is national. It's trying to get middle managers into a track that would work for them, and that could be fundraising, or it could be on a CFO on a bigger organization, or an executive. But to get them some connections and people within Boys and Girls Clubs and other organizations to talk to and share ideas with.
So it sounds like a lot of what you try to do too, just on a personal level, is just make sure that your younger staff are exposed to all the components of the club that you do as the executive director. And I know I've seen some several of your employees, they're always at the events,
Yeah.
mingling with donors. Seem like they're very well versed too in talking about all aspects of the club, which is a big piece of it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I want to give them the opportunity. They've invested in the mission. We talk about the mission a lot within the organization because that's where all of our programming, all of our ideas come off of the mission. How are we best serving our youth and those kids that need us most? But I want as long as they're invested in us, I want to make sure that they understand there is a track. There is opportunities for you to grow here because that's important too. Because the more turnover you have, whether it's a summer camp counselor or an after-school site coordinator or my director of operations, it only weakens the organization. We have summer camp staff that come back every year. I mean, they're college students. They go off to college. They could be going to school in Pennsylvania. They come back to our summer camp every year. That only makes us better because we're not retraining anybody. They know what our mission is. They know what to expect. They know what our policies are, and they know how the camp runs. So we're not retraining people. That's kind of the focus of trying to make sure that everybody's invested in that. We're investing in them to understand, we value you, and we want you to be part of this team, and this is how we can help you further.
So you were talking about your younger staff, and I know some challenges that a lot of employers and businesses are facing in general are turnover challenges, and a lot of people often leave for like the next best thing and might not always see if I stay here, then I can get this opportunity. Is that something that you see? And if you do, how do you deal with it, especially if these Boys and Girls Clubs, like you said, maybe Boys and Girls Clubs of America could put out a little bit more training. So how do you combat that?
We sometimes use outside of Boys and Girls Clubs trainings. We have very cautiously, but been a little more aggressive than I would have thought in the past. Started to increase our benefits and our salaries. The days of when I grew up of, you're going to make no money and you're going to enjoy it because you're at a Boys and Girls Clubs has kind of come to an end, or probably it should have ended a long time ago. And since we're licensed, there's other training opportunities as well. So, the preschool track, I don't even know how many national preschools are in Boys and Girls Clubs. There's not many. There's two. There's one in Ludlow, and there's one in West Springfield. I started the one in Ludlow, and I started the one in West Springfield. Not me. Yeah. I had the idea, and then I got the people that knew what they were doing to do it. So that's a totally different track. Like, those teachers have a totally different set of regulations they have to go through and training. So it's really trying to be creative and make sure we listen to them too. What would they like to be involved in? What kind of training would they like to go to? We're very heavily into, the STEM enrichment programs. So, if there's anything in that area that comes up, we have 2 or 3 staff that are very creative. We try to get them, out to trainings like that, or sometimes right now it's Zoom, or just being on a Zoom call of different clubs that offer different programming. But it's really trying to get back up to they can make a living. They don't have to sew the soles of their shoes for the rest of their life because they're not making very much money. Trying to get them back up to a decent salary and benefits and keep them engaged in the club.
Well, and to your point earlier where everybody can share ideas, and just because you're in preschool doesn't mean your ideas won't be relevant in a school age program, I think that probably helps them feel more appreciated and more valued.
I would hope so. Yeah, I do. I when I walk around the club, you can sense the collaboration and that atmosphere of that. Again, we're all here for the same reason. We're all working towards the same goal. It's very gratifying to see them interact with each other as a staff, and inside and outside of the club. There's other events in West Springfield that we try to actively participate in as a club, and we have a lot of staff that will be more than happy to go to a 250th dinner for the club because it's West Springfield's 250th anniversary, support that faction, and also be representing at the club at the same time. So to see them outside of the organization and still maintaining that family camaraderie type is very satisfying to see.
Well, and it really sounds like you've gotten your team to buy into the mission, and that's really important too. So what types of things do you think you do, but also the Boys and Girls Club of America with the different initiatives that they have? How do you get those people to buy into that mission so strongly?
I think they have to have some type of empathy, towards helping families and helping kids. I think that's if they're looking just on Indeed for something they think might be fun, they usually will only last a little while. Because I can tell you, working with kids is not always that fun. Not as fun as it sounds, as you probably know as a former fifth grade teacher. And being in a room with 23-year-olds is even less fun, unless you really have that empathy and want to be part of something that makes a difference for those kids that come into the program or those families that you work with. We recently just hired a social emotional learning coordinator. Again, nothing I would have ever thought of doing 5 years ago. But coming out of COVID, we saw, even now, the kids just aren't adjusting like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been a great addition to our staff, our kids, and our families to kind of mold that team as well, because now they know they have somebody to go to when the day gets long, when you feel like, these kids it's just overwhelming sometimes, or, I'm tired. They have somebody to talk to. I'm probably not the person they're going to come to talk to, quite honestly.
But you're available, like you said.
The door's
always open.
The door's open. But building that piece, like bringing that in, having, my director of operation and other staff say, this might be the time to bring that piece on if we can find something.
So that person, she supports both employees and the kids and families.
Yeah.
So it's a full, it's everything.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah, so she's there to, and she does trainings, things to look for and how to de-escalate, things like that. But we also have a lot of new families. So if you're in preschool and this is your first child and he's 2.9 months and you feel like there's something not right or you need some answers, young parents sometimes don't know where to go. She has those answers. She has the connections. So in that aspect as well, it's been a great addition. And then working with families, our goal is really to keep the kids in our program. And clubs can be very busy and noisy. We have sites with 50 plus kids. Our after school program at the club has, close to 100 plus our 40 preschoolers. Our summer camp will have 200 kids in there. That can be overwhelming in itself for a child, a young child, or a child that doesn't deal well with noise or constant activity. And so our goal is to keep them. This position has helped us kind of work with the families. How can we do that? And can we? And if we can't, can we get you services elsewhere instead of just sorry, this isn't the program for you. So, best of luck. It's really not part of our mission or our thought process. So bringing that position in as well. And our other staff does a great job. Tomorrow they have a potluck dinner or luncheon, so everybody's bringing something in. There was a sign-up sheet, so we have a party planning committee. So if you are a fan of The Office, our RD heads it up. But there's other parts of our staff. We have site coordinators on our party planning committee and part-time staff that just want to be involved in that. And they do birthdays for staff and they do, monthly things, again, to coordinate, because it is kind of, there's a lot of separation. We have 4 sites and 4 site coordinators and staff at those sites, and they don't always see each other. They could be at Fawsey Elementary School and just there, they wouldn't coordinate or connect with some of the staff at the Main Street site. Or only in certain circumstances. So this brings them together a little more, makes them feel like they are, because they are. They're my right arm, or our right arm. when they're out there. They're representing the club. So those little things have added great value to our family atmosphere and the club on a whole.
So Dan, when you talk about empathy as being kind of one of the markers of folks being successful in the nonprofit world generally, and specifically with the Boys and Girls Club and with the team you're building, tell us a little bit about where you get your sense of empathy and your background, and why you got into the nonprofit world to begin with, especially because you came in when you really were expecting, I'm not gonna necessarily strike it rich working for the Boys and Girls Club.
Right, and I didn't. I can go back. We just had our annual dinner, so I did just kind of piece together my career there. So I was going into teaching. I was going to be a coach. That's what I wanted to do. And I got a call from Pat Rodriguez. I was doing my internship in West Springfield. It all is very circular. So I was doing my internship at West Springfield High School. Pat Rodriguez from the Ludlow Boys and Girls Club called my high school that I was teaching at, said, I need summer camp staff desperately. If you know anybody, please, send them my way. So my teacher director, knew I grew up in Ludlow, and so I went over, interviewed, and she hired me on the spot. She was another one. They had lost their longtime leadership. She was 60 years old, was a program person, keeping that club together with literally bubble gum and duct tape. But summer camp was instrumental to their finances. It was like a third of their budget at the time. So she knew if she could get through summer camp, she might have a chance to keep going. She hired me as a part-time summer counselor. She elevated me into the summer camp assistant director within a couple days because she just thought I would have a blast doing that. No extra money.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And then towards the end of the summer, asked her and the board president, Paul Carnevale at the time, said, would you stay on? And I still had a year of college. We understand that. We want you to finish, but would you stay on and help with the programming side until we find an executive director and get things going? I said, sure. It wasn't much money, but there was a person that talk about dedication and work ethic. She was 60 years old. Her husband was very successful. They had already built their retirement home in Rockport. She did not have to stay. She stayed because of those kids and that community. And those kids loved her, I can tell you. She stayed 4 more years after that until they found an executive, and we kind of built on. And that really kind of was the introduction of Boys and Girls Clubs. But my father grew up in the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. Some of his lifelong friends were he met and grew up at that club with. Friends his friend Big Vin Del Negro, they talked together every day on the phone. Yeah, Big Vin Del Negro. They called each other every day until they passed away, a couple weeks apart, and they were 75 years old.
Yeah.
That they met at that club.
Yeah.
So I did have a background of what the clubs could mean. He would tell me stories about wanting to find the gym attendant at the Springfield Boys and Girls Club. His name was Hank, and he would walk as a salesman. He would walk the streets just hoping he would run into him one day, just so he could thank him, just so he could say thank you for what you did for us. For me, never had that opportunity, but I started to realize very early when I started working at the clubs, even the summer camp, how different they were, especially coming out of 6 weeks of ballroom dancing, then 6 weeks of lacrosse and 6 weeks of something else. Every day was different at the club, and that really excited me about it. And I really enjoyed that. And of course, at the beginning, they gave me the freedom to, like I said, there were some programs I thought were great, and we'd have all of 2 kids sign up, and there was other programs that we kind of built upon. So
you still got to be a coach, just for a lot of different stuff.
a lot of different stuff, yeah. And then being involved in the community. So I did coach in the community. I coached football and basketball.
Yep.
And that's always, I think, has been an important piece as I look at my career going back. It's easy to just say, oh, we're a Boys and Girls Club, and we need your help, we need your support. But there's a whole community you're asking to do that for, that other areas need help and support too. So I've always tried to be involved in those other aspects.
Yeah, I love
Right now,
that.
I'm a Lion. I'm a Rotarian, West Springfield. I'll be the Rotary president coming in. I'm part of the chamber. So we are, the Boys and Girls Clubs is, 100% my passion and what I do for a job, and what, if I had to step away from anything, it wouldn't be that. But I also understand there's other aspects of the community that needs assistance. And there's other civic groups that need, especially now, need bodies to be participants, to make the whole community strong. Because if the whole community is not strong, it's not going to matter what the Boys and Girls Club does, because there's not going to be any support for it. And it's something else I try to pass down to our staff as well, as they start to grow into leadership. Don't forget about the rest of the community, because they're looking at you as a leader, not just of the Boys and Girls Club, but you could be a leader that helps, kind of, support the whole community, and that's important as well.
I love that story about your dad and his buddy and they met at the Boys and Girls Club, because it sounds like that's where you would get your sense of community involvement and empathy, because you could see growing up like that how direct of an impact it had on your own family. And I would imagine, like, what are some of the stories from the West Springfield Boys and Girls Club in particular, when you look and you see, you know what, this is why we're doing this. It really made a difference in so and so's situation in life.
There's, I think, just the type of staff we have, and I've tried, you try to bring in the best people you can. And after COVID, it was just trying to get anybody that would come in for an interview. That was hard enough. But I started my career in an old mill building with very little lighting and, no air conditioning, and the heat didn't really even work. But that place was overflowing, and it was overflowing because they would come for the staff. They came, for that counselor in summer, or the gym person, or the staff that worked with them in the after school. And I see the same thing in our club now. The best reward we can get, or the best thing I hear, is when I see parents come in and the child says, "I don't want to go yet. Why are you here picking me up now? Can you come back?"
I like hearing that when I go to pick up my kids at their grandparents. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling from the grandparents.
Yeah. So I couldn't pinpoint one thing or another. I mean, we started, when I got there, as just after school program. And again, it's very secular, because, summer camp was a big portion of our finances, and those programs are important. But there's the other enrichments that we've added, that you don't have to necessarily be a club member too. We go out to the elementary schools, and last December, just before break, our staff did making goop with Tatham Elementary School. 265 kids. Our staff
kids love that.
The kids loved it, and the teachers loved it, because there was our staff with 265 kids making goop in the auditorium, as the teachers just kind of helped and assisted the day before Christmas, and it gave them a little break too. So those enrichment programs, and our very creative staff that has all these little ideas, 4-week programs where you can come in and make something here, whether it's goop or something else, doing art projects. Again, it excites them. Gives them an opportunity to see what else is out there. I mean, there's a lot of sports. Let's face it. Every time you turn around in any community, park and recs, or individual organizations, there's a lot of youth athletics out there. It's some of the other stuff that's not attainable to some kids. Again, that aren't, they couldn't. My daughter couldn't kick a ball to save her life. It would hurt her. My son was just the opposite. He wanted every ball, but not every child's like that. So I think involving those programs has helped as well.
Yeah, that's good. I remember when I toured your guys' facility over there, your staff was talking about did you put like a ninja warrior situation together?
Yes, yeah.
I imagine that's pretty popular.
Yeah, it's
Must be fun.
It's been a lot of. We do a lot of weekend programming with it. We do it in the after school program. I think it's built up to like age 12. Our preschoolers go on it, so they have the floor apparatuses, and it's something again different. It's something you don't see every day.
Right, that's true. But they're moving around, and that's great too.
Yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that you've always kind of been aware of the Boys and Girls Club and their mission because of your dad. Do you find that your employees and your team members have a similar connection?
That's a great question. There certainly have been some employees that have come through that have been members in other clubs. I think one of the things we always strive to is to have some of our members. It's great to have somebody come back, interview for a job that was a club member, whether it was a club member at my club or at another club in another state. And it is nice to also have those kids that have been there, seen it, and then still can gravitate toward it, can understand. Like I would love to work with kids in that capacity. And it also is very beneficial to us too, to again have somebody that has the knowledge, the experience. It's a little less training, but they're not walking into a situation where all of a sudden there's 13 kids in front of you and you have to entertain them for the next 7 hours. So that's helpful too. I wouldn't know what the percentage was, but but there's also a lot that don't have any background in Boys and Girls Clubs. They've heard of them but never worked at them. So it's a little bit of both. It really is. It's hard to explain a Boys and Girls Club unless you live through it, and we're not franchises. So we're not doing the same thing as Chicopee or Omaha, Nebraska. You kind of morph to your community. So it's not even that you can say, well, this is exactly what happens at a Boys and Girls Club. Every one of them's a little different.
So tell us a little bit about some of the big. I know this is kind of your event season over the summer and into the fall. You've got your big events. So what are kind of the signature events that you guys do in the community?
So we have 3 fundraisers that we do right now. We have our golf tournament. The tournament's filled. We have 2 flights. We do a morning flight and an afternoon flight. And then we do like a raffle and a cocktail reception afterwards. And that's separate. If people just wanted to come to the cocktail reception, they can do that as well. But the foursomes are filled. When I forget what year this is. I think 45, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
For anything. Never mind a golf tournament. But, there was a lull there. And then we started to pick up some momentum. And this is the first year at Springfield Country Club. We're excited about that. It's a beautiful course, not one that everybody gets to play every day. So I think people are excited about that piece. And also just the view up there in the cocktail reception area.
It's great over the past couple of years what they did with the clubhouse too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we our goal is 100,000 this year for the golf tournament. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it's a day like this.
Right.
That always helps. Our second one is our Flutes and Flavors. That is kind of a food and wine tasting, drink tasting with an auction involved. It used to be in March. We moved it. COVID, kind of rotated things around for all of our fundraisers. Although our staff did a tremendous job. The only one we really lost was golf, but we did Flutes and Flavors. It was a drive-through at the Big E. So we still had food samples and drink samples, but you drove your car through.
Oh, yeah.
Tour of Homes is our, but Flutes and Flavors is at Springfield Country Club too, September 6th. Usually, 300, 350 people that attend. Our goal this year is 70,000. And all of our fundraisers go to our financial assistance for our families.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, childcare can, be pricey, obviously.
It's very pricey.
Yeah. And there's, the state has made some adjustments to kind of cut those costs or make some adjustments, but, it will never be quick enough for any of our families. So one of the directives the Board of Trustees gave me also when I came in is, one was to increase revenue, but the other was also not to turn any child away, no matter what their condition was. So that's where all of our fundraisers come into. They all support families in need of financial assistance, whether it's a basketball program or it's preschool or summer camp, whatever that process is. The last fundraiser we have is our Tour of Homes. It's decorated homes just before the holidays. It's usually the first Saturday of December. Again, this is like our 27th year of
Oh, that's
doing it.
long running too then, yeah.
That's long running, 6 or 7 homes, and every one of them's different. Really kicks off the holidays, for the community. We have anywhere from 500 to 650 people go through, depending on the day and the weather. It's really remarkable. Again, it's a testament to the community. Most of the homes, 90% of the homes are in West Springfield. We have had a few in Agawam or Feeding Hills, which is within driving distance. But to open up your home, decorate it, literally, you have to start like the day after Halloween to be ready for the beginning of December. And then to let 600 strangers go through your homes just so that they can get ready for the holidays, get the holiday spirit is, again, it's remarkable. So, and we'd also do a craft fair at the club, right in the club gymnasium that we started 2 years ago, which is very successful. We probably 50 or 60 different vendors, really, again, nice opportunity for people to shop. There's candle vendors and crafters and a whole bunch of different opportunities for people to see. So, and that's another one, it's long-standing, but I can't see it going away. One of the biggest problems I ever ran into is the second year I was there, I canceled it, and people still talk about it.
Yeah,
right. So
you got it started right up again, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's great, Dan. Thanks for that overview of the event too. And how can our audience stay updated on the club's activities and get further involved?
If you go onto our website, BGC, wsbgcclub.org, it gives all of our program information, and it's all up to date. And there's also a donate now button. So if there's other program opportunities you'd like to participate, if you can't get to our fundraisers, we do have an annual campaign that goes year round that supports all of our operations. And you can also right there put in your email and be put on our emailing list so that you can get our information, and that's program information as well. So, some of our unique opportunities that we offer for our kids in the community, take advantage of.
Great. Okay, so Dan D'Angelo, Executive Director of the West Springfield Boys and Girls Club, thanks so much for giving us that great overview and providing some great leadership advice too for our listeners, business owners, HR professionals, building a team, finance, all that stuff. We really appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Checkwriters. Be sure to follow us on Apple, YouTube, or wherever you view your favorite podcasts. Stay tuned for future episodes where we'll continue to uncover the secrets behind successful organizations.